Hello, and welcome to the Godot community for High School Visual Art 3D. On the following slides, you will see preparing a form for the Saggar fire process. A traditional Saggar is a sealed container made from clay, and bisqueware was taken and put inside the container with combustible materials, and since the carbon didn't have any way to escape because it was in the sealed container, it would attach to the bisqueware, and that would then get this really wonderful mottled organic surface. When you are planning your bisque fire, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need your bisqueware piece, and you hopefully saw the other videos. I would suggest something with a smooth surface. You're going to need some ferric chloride. Ferric chloride can be purchased at electronic stores. It's used a lot of times in etching for printmakers. When they etch metal plates, they use it. You're going to need some combustible materials. So I suggest, or I've had good luck with pine needles, with horsehair, with steel wool to get lots of nice line movement. Other materials might be sawdust. I've had limited success with feathers. Some people use dried banana peels and dog food, and just really the sky's the limit with what you can use. You need aluminum foil because you're going to have to wrap the work up like a baked potato, and that is where a modern twist on the traditional Saggar fire comes in. So instead of making a clay box with a lid, we're just sealing our work up in aluminum foil and getting very much the same effect. And then lastly, this needs to be done in an outdoor raku kiln. So that can be any type of raku kiln. And then you're going to need a pyrometer, whether it be the old school that you read manually, or if you're lucky enough to have a fancy digital pyrometer that you can reliably bring up to about 1260, which is our target temperature. On the following slide, you're going to see how the Saggar is prepared. When you are preparing a form for a Saggar fire, you're going to need a few things. First of all, to get the wonderful pinks and oranges, it's suggested that you start with a base of ferric chloride. Now, ferric chloride is pretty caustic, so you want to make sure that you're wearing gloves, and you don't want it to come into contact with metal. So I typically brush it on. I like to use a bamboo brush that doesn't have any metal parts. I've sprayed it on before, and of course, if you spray it on, you want to make sure you do so in a nice ventilated area. But that's kind of a one and done for that spray bottle, because that spray bottle is not going to be able to be used for anything else, and it won't even be able to be used for your next Saggar fire, because there are metal mechanisms in most spray bottles that the ferric chloride basically eats away at. Also, you want to make sure that you are working on an absorbent surface. So I usually mix the ferric chloride. This ferric chloride is pretty light. I usually mix it with about a 30% water to the ferric chloride. So it is diluted a little bit. This is a little bit more diluted than I typically would like it to be. So because of that, I may put on a couple of extra coats. And I'm working on an absorbent surface because, I don't want puddles of the ferric chloride sitting. And I'm working outside. Anytime you're working with something that is a little bit more caustic, best to keep it outdoors. But again, especially if you decide to go the route of a sprayer. So I'm brushing this onto a bisque fired form. So after making the form, you want to make sure it's bisque fired, and that'll make it nice and absorbent for your ferric chloride. And because it's bisqueware, obviously that clay is really absorbing the moisture. So I can go ahead and add the second coat
to make sure that I've got enough to get these beautiful pinks and oranges and burgundies that this ferric chloride promotes in a Saggar fire. And another note, you may want to wear an apron, because if you get this ferric chloride on your clothing, it will not come out. It will stain and it will stay stained. There's no washing it out. And if you get it on your skin, you know, you can wash it off with soap and water, that's fine. But you'll know if you get it on your skin and don't take care of it, because after a while it will start to sting a little bit. For those reasons, when I do a Saggar fire, I typically do this step. I do not have my students do this step. It doesn't take that long, especially if you're using a spray bottle. So I want the bottom of this form to dry, because what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead and create our Saggar, and our Saggar is made from aluminum foil, and ferric chloride coming in contact wet with aluminum foil will eat away at the foil, but if it's dry, then it won't affect it. After a while, it might eat through it, but not if you are planning on doing your Saggar fire the same day that you wrap your forms. So I'm going to put my piece of paper aside, and I'm going to go ahead and get a couple pieces of aluminum foil. So remember that a traditional Saggar typically was a box made out of clay that would enclose and seal in a form inside the box with the combustible materials, but we are just doing this with aluminum foil instead. And there are all kinds of things that you can put in a Saggar fire. I usually put a few bits of sawdust. The sawdust is pretty coarse. You don't want to put a lot of materials in a Saggar, because if you do, then it will just turn black. So I like to start with a little bit of sawdust. That way, if I do have any moisture still on the bottom of my form, that sawdust will absorb some of it. I like to use and have had good luck with horsehair. So I'm going to take a little bit of horsehair and just drape it on the form. And if you don't have access to horsehair, which, you know, wouldn't be uncommon, and you have an orchestra teacher who has old bows, those are really great. Newer bows are made with a synthetic material, so it has to be an older bow. I'm taking a little bit of coarse steel wool, and I'm just shredding a little bit of that and putting it on either side. And then I think that I'm going to be done. I think that's all I'm going to put in my Saggar. And I'm going to fold up the sides, and that'll get some of that material to adhere to the side of my form. And my students always joke that these just look like a pile of baked potatoes, which they do. So I wrapped my aluminum foil up from the bottom to the top, and then I'll turn it over and I'll do the same on the other side, because we just want to make sure it gets a nice seal. We want all of that good carbon trapped in our Saggar. So this is ready to stack in our kiln.